Welcome back, friends.
Hi there.
Today, we're going to do a deep dive. Just kidding. This one's going to be more of a shallow dive into a character creation for City of Mist.
Yes, we're going to go over, essentially, instead of having a character sheet, City of Mist has character cards. We're going to kind of break down each thing on the card and talk about it, the ones that are super important to character creation a little bit, and then let you know which ones, hey, don't worry about it, you and the MC can come up with it later.
Right off the bat, getting right into it, you got your basics. You got to pick a name.
You got to pick a name.
Everybody needs a name.
After that, you got to go through and figure out on what scale you want to be awakened.
Right. So it kind of has like each character in City of Mist is basically falls on a spectrum. There's really 5, but really I would say there's 3 primaries and 2 that kind of are special.
2 short-term ones.
Yeah. So you have what's called touched. And touched is basically you're kind of getting your feet wet. You're aware that some weird things are kind of going on in this world that you're in. And you have 1 mythos and 3 logos. What these basically are is your mythos is basically what you draw your power from.
Your special powers.
Yeah. It's what's being awakened inside you.
Yeah.
Your logos is basically your everyday life kind of stuff.
Yes. The other 2 borderliners are split 50-50, so they got 2 of both. And then the legendaries are swung the other way. They have 3 mythos and 1 logos.
And the next 2 are the kind of like the temporary ones that you can get. You have what's called an avatar, which is basically 3 mythos and no logos. What you are at this point is you are pretty much the physical embodiment of whatever is giving you your powers and abilities.
And the other one is the sleeper. It's the people who are not awakened yet. It's just the 3 logos. You don't have any mythos yet. Both of those, I think, would be a great, interesting way to start a campaign. But it would be something that I would be up to the MC, and it's definitely something you might want to try down the road after you've had a couple in you.
The mythos themselves also break down to kind of like their own categories. Within these categories, and we're going to do a much deeper dive into these categories in a later video, but we're just going to kind of run through some of the generalized basic ones that you have right off the bat. You have basically an adaptation abilities, which are basically things that allow you to adapt and change and adjust to your current situation. And you have Bastion, which is basically like your tanky stuff.
You also have the divination, which is how you gain. It's something's giving you the ability to have information you wouldn't otherwise have.
Like foresight.
Yeah. Expression, offense, or ability to alter reality. So that's your elemental people, your storm, your, I don't know, Iceman.
When I was making my character, I kind of looked at it as like the ability to change the world around you. Yeah. That's kind of what I looked at it as. And then you've got your movement stuff. Speedsters, this is where your home is. 100%.
Because each of these is not, all you do is that one thing. Each of these is your defense and your offense and your support stuff and your utility stuff. It all falls under one. These are just the different themes that it fits under.
One thing that I would definitely like to mention is a lot of these abilities, like particularly speaking of mobility and movement, you don't have to use these just as defense, because when you think about it, if like the Flash, right, his speed of light punch, perfect example of it. You can level things with this. So don't feel like when you're going through and you're looking at the sheet that you have to limit yourself. Well, I don't really just want to move. It can be as much as offensive and defensive as it can. Moving on beyond that, you have your relic abilities. Something like this, like the first thing that comes to mind is the Green Lantern's ring.
Sword of Excalibur.
Perfect. 2 perfect examples.
Yeah. And the last one is your subversion. It's your stealth. It's your sneaking around. It's your, I'm here, but I'm not here. On the other side of that is your logos. It's your everyday life. Everything from a defining event to a defining relationship. It's everything to do with your character before.
Yeah, it's basically what you're going to draw some of your, I would say, skills, or kind of like your everyday things that you can use of value to help you in this world. For example, like a perfect thing that I've got, my character has basically cybersecurity.
Right.
He went to school and he was recruited by like the FBI, and he worked for like cyber warfare and stuff like that. So I'm able to implement that in like computer hacking and stuff
as a training theme. There's a routine theme. There's a possessions. So maybe they just have a whole bunch of belongings like Batman. Batman would have a possessions theme.
Tools. Yeah.
Yeah. Personality, missions, things like that. Ideally, you never want to have more than one theme that's the same.
No. And by that, I think what you're kind of saying is if you have things that are too similar, they're not going to really they're not going to help you in situations where another ability or another skill or mythos would. So you kind of want to, that's why they have these different categories. And we'll get into it in another video about specific things that keep you from picking like constant bastion and stuff like that.
Right.
But that's going to be in a later video.
Also underneath each of these cards, because they're individual cards for each theme, you have your mystery or your identity. Mystery is the mythos, identity is the logos. What these are things that you have to kind of play into a little bit. If you don't play into them, eventually you lose the whole theme and it flips to the other side.
Yes. The core of this game is kind of the constant back and forth of the struggle between you being human and you having these extraordinary abilities. And when you don't pay attention to some of the stuff, for example, like your personality, let's say your guy's extremely aggressive, but you're passive, you're playing a passive. You're now going against your personality, logos at this point. And what's going to happen is you get what's called a crack. And the more you get a total of 3 cracks, and then that logos becomes a mythos. And the same thing works for mythos. You get 3 over here, and that mythos then becomes a logos.
So because you're not playing into this aggressive character, that trait is eventually lost and turned into, oh, well, they've went against themselves so long that they've lost themselves in a way.
And this is how you can become a sleeper, actually.
Yeah. Another card that comes up and is super important is the crew card. We're not going to spend long on it. It's essentially the group as a whole, what kind of group they are, whether that be they are private investigators or part of an agency, which we kind of did both.
Mythbuster type dudes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's literally anything you can think of. There are some great examples in the books, but it's entirely up to the group.
And just like within the mythos and the logos, and we didn't mention it earlier, but you get power tags in all these different categories. You will also get power tags in your crew tags as well. But what makes these special is that everybody that's in the crew can use these power tags. At any time. Yeah. But once they're used, they're burned, which means you can't use them again until you go through your credits scene. Is that what that's called? Geek out during the credits.
Geek out during the credits, yeah. Into session.
Yeah.
Each theme will have 3 power tags and 1 weakness when you start. There is an optional thing where you get 1 extra power tag on something, but you also have to take another weakness on it. You can only do that once. Outside of that, things to not worry about during character creation, unless you don't want to talk it over with your MC because you have this great idea for a character that has a nemesis off the start. These things will come up later. They come up during play, and by the time that they come up, you should be ready for them, or the MC should be ready for them.
You're going to have stuff like the build-up and evolution, and that's how this game pretty much handles leveling.
Yeah. Story tags, flipping the cards. We've talked about, we hinted on just a little bit, but there's a flip side part on the card where it talks about what it could turn into on the other side of that.
You've got your nemesis, which is, it's not like kind of like you would think it is, because you think nemesis, you think of bad guy. It can also be like an internal struggle you have as well.
Right. Nemesis is very broad. I figure we'll do a full video on that.
Yeah.
Statuses is going to be a full video because those are really neat.
It's how you take damage.
All the different moves is going to be a video that we do when we go through each one and we kind of talk about our experiences with it and things like that.
And another big one that's going to have another video in and of itself is something the game uses called Juice.
And the dynamite moves and stuff like that.
Those are like the big, like, wow!
Moments.
You would say like a crit kind of situation.
Right, yeah.
And the juice itself is basically what helps you add to it. Kind of like, it gives you a modifier essentially.
But those are things you can worry about later. For now, in the next couple videos, we're going to worry about the mythos, the power tags, and the crew stuff. And those will be the next videos.
And if you would like to continue this journey with us and you want to read the game guide directly, we have actually partnered with City of Mist, something that we're super stoked about. So if you go to cityofmist.co, you can use code FADERCHANCE and get yourself a discount on anything on the website.
Which is super cool.
Yeah. So other than that, I've been Ryan.
And I'm JD.
Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you in the next City of Mist video. Peace.